This is a story called The Girl. Maria is a 25-year-old woman who is pregnant with her first baby. Unfortunately, the baby's father isn't on the scene and he wants nothing to do with the baby once it's born. However, she's in a new relationship and her new boyfriend Peter is willing to bring the baby up as his own, and Maria has agreed to marry him. When baby Bella is born, her stepdad decided that he doesn't want anything to do with her. He tells Maria that the baby has to go and that he doesn't want her in the house. Maria doesn't know what to do, so in desperation she takes baby Bella into the woods and leaves her there to die. When she gets back to the house, her sister Joanne's there. She asks Maria, where's the baby? Maria doesn't answer, she just sits there looking distant with tears running down her face. So Joanne asks her again, Maria, where is the baby? Maria still sits there looking distant, then she says, I took the baby into the woods and left her. Peter doesn't want her, he doesn't even want her in the house. Straight away Joanne panicked. She grabbed her coat and a warm blanket for the baby and goes out looking for her. After about 10 minutes she hears baby Bella crying and then she sees her. She picks her up and checks her over and thankfully she's fine. She then takes her back to the house, but Peter goes crazy. She tells him that he has to look after her and that they can't abandon her again. After that, Peter agrees to let Maria keep the baby, but he refuses to look after her and to provide for her. When Bella is around 18 months old, her mum has another baby girl and she calls her Ellie. Peter dotes on baby Ellie, but he hates Bella. As Bella gets older, Peter's taste for her grows. When she is 2 years old, she spills cereal all over the floor. Peter screams in her face and then slaps her round the face continuously. He then tells Maria that she will no longer be referred to as Bella. She will only be referred to as the girl. When Bella is 4 years old, her mum gives birth to a son, and they call him Lucas. Both Maria and Peter dote on baby Lucas and Ellie, but Bella isn't shown any love and affection. One day Bella spills her drink by accident and Peter grabs her and hits her over and over again. After that, Bella wasn't allowed to sit at the dinner table with the rest of the family for a whole week. After that week, Maria persuades Peter to allow Bella to sit at the table with the rest of the family. Sometime after that, Peter tells Maria that Bella is to live in her room and never come out. The only time that she's allowed out of her room is to use the toilet and go to school. She rarely gets fed and when she does it's mostly scraps. Maria tries to get food to her but only when Peter's out or asleep from a heavy drinking session. However, one day Peter catches Bella eating without permission and he beats her black and blue. One day Bella's school teacher notices bruises on her. When she asks Bella what happened, she just clammed up. The teacher called their parents. When they went to the school, they pretended that they didn't know how Bella got the bruises. That day when they got home, Peter beat Bella again. Then he put her in the boot of his car, got the rest of the family in the car with all their belongings and left. He got some friends to move all their furniture and stuff. When the police and social services went to their house, there was no sign of them and the house was completely empty. Peter moved them to a house in the country and in the middle of nowhere. He got a friend to homeschool the kids once they were old enough for school. Bella was never allowed to leave her room. All that was in there was a filthy mattress on the floor. There was no blankets, no pillows and no toys for her to play with. The clothes she was wearing were filthy and they were too small for her. She was never allowed to leave the room, not even to use the toilet. She was given a bucket for her to use as a toilet. She was never returned to as Bella, just as the girl. One day when Bella was 10, all her family went out for the day, leaving her home alone. She seized the opportunity to escape by climbing out of a window. However, as she was doing so, the family came home because Peter had left his wallet behind. He caught Bella, beat her and then locked her in the cellar where there was no windows. He told the family to forget about the girl because the girl didn't exist. He told them that if anyone ever mentioned her, they'd be in trouble. From that day on, she was never mentioned, but the other kids would sneak food out of the kitchen and secretly take it to her. They were very careful not to get caught because they didn't want to get into trouble. One day, Peter caught Lucas giving Bella food and he lost his temper and beat him with his belt. Then he said to him, "If I ever catch you taking food to the girl again, I will kill her and you. You stay away from the girl. She will eat only when I tell her to eat and not before. The next time we sit down to eat, you will sit at the table and watch us, but you will not eat unless I give you permission to do so. This is your punishment for taking food to the girl. Now you will go to your room and you will not leave until I give you permission." Lucas did as he was told and went to his room. A few days later, Ellie sneaked down to the cellar to give Bella some food. However, as she did so, her dad grabbed her from behind and asked her, where do you think you're going with that food, young lady?" I, answer me right now, young lady. I was taking this food to Bella. I mean the girl, Dad. "Oh, you were you?" Yes, Dad. She hasn't eaten for 3 days. I thought she might be hungry." "What have I told you all? You do not take food to the girl without my permission." I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't mean anything." Then Peter took off his belt and hit Ellie with it over and over again. And then he beat her with his fist and then told her to go to her room and stay there. Ellie was so badly hurt that she literally had to crawl up the stairs sobbing because she couldn't get up and walk. A couple of days later, Bella was so hungry that she decided to risk going upstairs to get some food. When she got to the top of the stairs, she made sure that the coast was clear, and then she sneaked into the kitchen and took some food. As she did so, she knocked a cup off the worktop by accident, and Peter came in to see what the noise was. When he saw Bella, he grabbed her by her hair as she tried to run. Then he grabbed her, kicking and screaming down the stairs and into the cellar. Then he screamed in her face, saying, "How dare you leave the cellar and steal food without permission? You are a thief, and I don't want thieves in my house." Then he beat her with the buckle of his belt and his fist, and the more she screamed, cried and begged him to stop, the more he beat her. Then he said to her, "From now on, girl, you stay in here. You are never to leave this cellar again, and you are never to speak to anyone else in this house. Is that clear, girl?" Bella didn't answer, so Peter grabbed her hair and pulled her head back and said, "Answer me at once, girl." "Yes." Then Peter threw her on the floor, kicked her, and then left her there crying and sobbing. Bella didn't eat for another 2 days, and her body was so black and blue that you could barely see her natural skin colour. She also had a few broken ribs which were causing her a great deal of pain. One day Peter was asleep on the sofa after a heavy drinking session, and Lucas and Ellie sneaked downstairs to the cellar, got Bella, and then they all sneaked back upstairs out of the house, and then they ran as fast as they could. However, they hadn't got far when their parents pulled up in their car. Peter grabbed Bella, then Maria grabbed Ellie and Lucas and shoved them in the back seat. When they got home, all three kids were beaten. At this point, Maria was heavily pregnant with triplets, but she didn't care. When the babies were born, they were all girls and they were named Mary, Molly and Macy. Right from day one, the triplets were neglected. They were left in filthy nappies for days sometimes. When the triplets were 6 months old and Bella was about 10.5 years old and Ellie was about 8.5 and Lucas was about 6, Peter had come home extremely drunk after a very heavy drinking session and went straight to bed. However, he left his keys in his coat pocket and the keys to the cellar was on there. Ellie grabbed the keys and let Bella out of the cellar. Then they all went upstairs as quietly as they could, got the triplets, took all the keys to the house, cars and van, went outside and then locked all of the doors so that their parents couldn't come after them. They knew that they had grandparents somewhere and other relatives, but they didn't know who they were or where they lived. After they'd been walking for quite some time in the dark and the snow with no warm clothing and no shoes on their feet, they saw a police station. They went in, and as soon as the policeman who was working on the front desk saw them, he immediately contacted his superior. She came down with loads of blankets to wrap them all in. Then she took them into a room where there was toys for them to play with. Bella, Ellie and Lucas told the police everything that had happened, and they gave them their address and the keys to their house. The kids were taken to a foster home until their other relatives could be traced. The police arrested Maria and Peter and took them into custody and then formally charged them with child abuse and neglect. They were taken to court a few days later where they pleaded not guilty to what they'd been charged with, and they showed no remorse. They were both sent to prison on remand until their trial date. In the meantime, an appeal was put out with pictures of the kids and their parents to find any relatives who would be willing to take them in on a permanent basis. Once the kids' story was out there, people were disgusted by the way they'd been treated, Bella especially. When Auntie Joanne saw their story, she was devastated. She immediately contacted the police and social services and told them that even though her and her husband had 6 kids of their own, they were more than happy to take all 6 kids. 2 weeks after they were rescued, the kids went to live with their Auntie Joanne and Uncle Philip. Their parents were kept on remand until their trial date. On the first day of their trial, they continued to plead not guilty and to show no remorse for their crimes. When someone mentioned Bella by her name, Philip lost his temper and attacked them and said, "I will not tolerate anyone referring to the girl as Bella. She is always referred to as the girl. The girl is a worthless piece of junk and a disgrace to our family and our country. She should never have been born." He was restrained and taken back to the cells until his next court appearance. On the day, both him and Maria pleaded not guilty and showed no remorse. Again, that day someone referred to Bella by her name again, and this time both Maria and Peter kicked off and attacked the person who did that. Before they could be restrained, some of their friends came in and attacked the people in the courtroom, and the couple escaped and went on the run. A few days later they stole their car and went to Joanne's to get the kids. Of course Joanne couldn't let them near the kids. She phoned the police and then she phoned the school and explained the situation. The school didn't let Bella, Lucas and Ellie out of their sight until Philip went to pick them up. By the time the police arrived, Maria and Peter had gone again. Joanne managed to take down the registration number of the car they were in. However, when the police found the car, it had been abandoned and burnt out. A few days later, Bella, Lucas and Ellie were in the garden when they saw their parents coming towards them in a car. They quickly ran inside and told Joanne and Philip. When Peter and Maria got out of the car, Joanne noticed that Peter had left it unlocked and he'd left the keys in the ignition. She sneaked out through the back door and took the car keys out of the ignition, and then she sneaked back inside and called the police. This time the police didn't want to risk the couple getting away again. They decided it would be best to approach Joanne and Philip's house without their sirens blaring and their blue lights flashing. They parked their cars further down the street and got the house surrounded. They also cordoned off the whole street so that they couldn't escape. Then they approached the couple and one of the officers shouted, "Police, stay where you are!" The couple were arrested again and taken back into custody. This time when they went to court they were taken with their hands handcuffed behind their backs and a prison officer on either side of them and two behind them. This time the judge sentenced them straight away. They were both considered a danger to the public, kids especially, and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Their parental rights were taken away, and as Maria was pregnant again, she was told that when the twins were born they'd be taken away. When they were born, Maria called them George and Alfie. They too were taken away and given to Joanne and Philip. Maria and Peter were both sent to high security prisons. In time, Joanne and Philip adopted all 8 kids, and with a great deal of love, support and counselling, Bella, Ellie and Lucas all overcame their horrific ordeal. They caught up in school and are doing really well. When they grow up, Bella wants to be a primary school teacher, Ellie wants to be a nurse, and Lucas wants to be a chef and to own his own catering company. The other kids are still babies and are too young to know anything. The end. Thank you for watching, guys.